Closed captioning of this program is made possible by the Fireman's Fund Foundation.
Election day is Tuesday, and polls show the Democrats extending their leads in the races for governor and United States senator. If passed, Proposition 23 would repeal California's global warming law. Proposition 21 would provide funds for state parks. We'll discuss both of them tonight. And the number of Bay Area foreclosures is down from the highs of last year, but it's still 3 times the normal historic average. And in the midst of heated political battle and economic hardship, the San Francisco Giants brings happiness and hope to the Bay Area. We'll have those stories next. Good evening and welcome to This Week in Northern California. I'm Belva Davis. And joining me tonight on our news panel are Rachel Gordon, City Hall reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle; Carolyn Said, business writer with the Chronicle; Paul Rogers, environment writer for the San Jose Mercury News; and Carla Marinucci, political reporter for the Chronicle. And we will start with you, Carla, because you were down in Long Beach where Meg Whitman was booed by an audience of women. Both Meg Whitman and Carly Fiorina seem to be having trouble now.
I mean, yeah, and who would have envisioned this? On primary night, both of them stood together and said that they were the worst nightmare for the Democrats, 2 high-profile CEOs in a year in which incumbents and traditional politicians seem to be old news, and yet neither of them really have seemed to be able to make the sale to California voters. And in Meg Whitman's case, we're talking about $142 million of her own money has gone into trying to make this sale. It's really an amazing story, and I think what we're seeing is the message, and I think the issue of character and the huge Democratic advantage in this state. The Long Beach conference showed how Jerry Brown, as a veteran politician, just knew how to pivot and deal with a question that wasn't expected, and Whitman just dug herself into a hole, and it seems like for the rest of the week things have been happening like that. There's been a lot of issues throughout this campaign, I have to say, Belva, that have dealt with sort of the women's vote. That Long Beach conference being a good example of it. The issue of the maid, Nikki Diaz, which has seemed to be in all the polls just a killer for Meg Whitman, and she kind of stepped in again yesterday by saying she would want to deport the maid, kind of reminding voters of this whole issue. From that one to the issue of the use of a sexist slur by someone in Jerry Brown's campaign, another issue that sort of resonated with women voters. The issue of Carly Fiorina's breast cancer, which we saw again this week. She went into the hospital a very crucial 48 hours in the last week of the election and has come out, looks like, fighting. But in both cases, it looks like these women have a very big challenge in getting over the finish line.
Carla, the New York Times had a poll this week that said California is really going the opposite of the country, and it showed that women who voted for Obama and Democrats last time around now are going strongly to the Republicans. So why isn't that happening in California when you've got strong female candidates?
You know, it's really interesting because in both cases, these female candidates are women who had spotty voting records and really not a lot of civic involvement before they decided to run for these top offices. California being in a fiscal crisis as it is, both Jerry Brown and Barbara Boxer have been able to make the case that you need sort of a steady hand on the wheel or experience. In Jerry Brown's case, has really been able to say, I'm the one who can get both sides together. I know all the corridors and pitfalls up there in Sacramento, and I'm going to be able to knock heads together and get some things done.
Well, and the problem for Carly and Meg is that California is a Democratic state. It's a blue state that has been getting bluer and bluer and bluer after the Bush presidency. When you look at the voter registration in this state, and some new numbers just came out today, there are 7.5 million Democrats in California. There are 5 million Republicans and 3 million declined estates. It means any Republican candidate who starts 2 million votes behind. They start 13% behind.
Absolutely right,
The only
Paul.
way that Meg could have won this race, and she may still pull it out, but that would be a miracle, is if she pulled a lot of women voters, a lot of young voters, and a lot of Latino voters from Jerry Brown, and the maid issue killed that.
Yeah,
she was
absolutely.
tied until the maid issue, and now she's lost 10
And I have to say, there's one other sort of difference between these two. It's interesting that Fiorina, although she's more conservative, is closer to Barbara Boxer, and I think that's because she is a candidate who sort of understood that she needed to go out and talk to voters directly. She was not protected. She connected directly with voters.
And Boxer's less popular.
Yeah,
She's always had
and Meg
low.
Whitman spent so much of her time in a bubble. To this day, we still haven't been able to interview her
We have to get
face
to
to face.
the reason why we're having this discussion, and that are the polls that are out. So let's talk about those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the field poll this week, which is the most reputable California nonpartisan poll, has Meg Whitman behind Jerry Brown by 10 points. The most devastating thing is, since Labor Day, she has spent almost $40 million, and her negatives have gone up to 51%. That is huge. She hasn't touched Jerry Brown's negatives, despite spending all that money and having all those consultants. That's a hard thing to get over. Now, you said the election's not over. Maybe she'll turn out voters that are out there. We still don't know.
Doesn't she have a plan to do that?
We've heard that that they have a state-of-the-art plan to be able to get out these voters. The fact is, voters have been introduced to her for 18 months, almost nonstop on the air.
But she's
and she's got
reintroducing herself,
51%.
right?
That's right.
But with this last commercial, I was kind of shocked when I saw it, which was, I may be a billionaire, but I worked hard. And it's like, why are you buying into what Jerry Brown's throwing at you, or what the negatives
That
are?
is,
I mean,
it's
it was
really
like,
interesting.
She was
And
remaking her biography.
In the
turning it
last 2
upside
days,
down.
she has gone sort of very soft focus on the commercials, and she's actually doing these retail events, going out. I spent time with her in Pleasanton, where she walked down the street for an hour and a half with not a TV camera with her, maybe talking to half a dozen voters. It just seemed like a crazy use of the candidate's time at this point of the election. I think the campaign, for all those top political and very expensive political consultants they have, did not read the California electorate.
So assuming she loses, she's going to join a whole list of very wealthy, self-funded candidates who've gone down big in California. There's Michael Huffington, Bill Simon, Al Checky, Steve Wesley. They all lost. They all poured their fortunes into their campaigns. What does that say about either the smartness of the California electorate or the shortcomings of political
I think you have a
newcomers who try
point.
to buy their
Everyone
way
was
in?
watching both these races. The feeling was, if Carly and Meg had made it over the finish line, then billionaires all over the country would have had the green light to run. It's not going to happen anymore.
Well, we've been talking about this topic for some time, along with trying to analyze some of the state's propositions for months now. So tonight it's the turn for the state parks and Prop 23. We turn to the environment with you, Paul.
There's a surprising number of environmental measures on the ballot this time around. And interestingly, many of them haven't been polled the way that the governor and the Senate race are going. So I think right now, if you ask most political analysts, they would predict that Democrats are going to win every major race in California, possibly with the exception of the Attorney General's race, where Steve Cooley, the Republican, may beat Kamala Harris. But if you ask them on these ballot measures, they don't know. They just do not know. There's some internal polls that show some of them close. Prop 21, which is the state parks measure, is basically an effort by environmental groups who have really been anguishing the last few years as the state budget has suffered. They've seen the governor threaten to close 200 of the state's 280 parks. And they're trying to, once and for all, put parks on the correct footing and pull the park's entire funding away from the general fund and say, we will add an $18 a year surcharge to your vehicle registration. That would raise about $500 million a year. It would double the state park budget for rangers, acquisition of new parks, fixing up roads, bathrooms, campgrounds, and every person with a California license plate would get in to every state park and beach for free. There's virtually no opposition campaign. The opposition campaign has raised less than $100,000. Internally, the thing is polling in the high 50s, although nobody knows because opponents are calling it a car tax. This is a strong year for Republicans, a strong anti-tax year. So this is still up in the air.
Two major newspapers have come out in opposition
Several
to it.
have, yeah.
So why?
The main complaint from critics is that it's ballot box budgeting, which is the state is already in a lot of trouble from initiatives that have been put on the ballot that tie the hands of the legislators. What the Yes side has said, and Yes is run by the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society, groups like that, they're saying this is actually freeing up part of the state's general fund because of the 130 million or so that the state spends every year on parks would go to zero, and the new source of funds would come from this car fee, and they're arguing it's actually allowing the 130 to be used for anything else.
But Paul, isn't it also showing a frustration, even that it's on the ballot, a frustration from voters that they don't like the priorities that are being set in Sacramento, that they say, look, we want parks, we want transportation that's been set aside before, we want X, Y, or Z. You aren't doing your job, and we've seen just with the budget stalemate that it's not a very unified force up there. And I mean,
so many things are politicized, and state parks seem to be one of the last things that aren't. You know, when the governor talked about closing a lot of them, his staff told me they were shocked at what a flood of letters and calls they got. A lot of them from older conservative people who see the state parks as central to California's identity. They remember when they were kids going to the Gold Rush Discovery site, going to the missions, and it pains them that those places are falling apart. You know, liberals and environmentalists on the other side say, you know, wildlife, animals, and so that you have this pretty strong coalition of the right and the left. Whether or not people will vote for an $18 surcharge, we'll see.
But what about the criticism? I know we have to move on, but it's $18 now. A couple of years from now, then it's 25, then it's 50.
My understanding is it would take another vote of the people to raise it up again. 2 other states have tried this, Montana and Washington. California's would be the highest.
Okay, and the other hot issue that it's on the environment.
Well, Prop 23, as a lot of people know, is the measure that's being sponsored mostly by oil companies that would suspend California's global warming law until unemployment got down to 5.5%, where it hasn't been very many times in the last 20 years. That is polling so poorly now. It's now in the mid-30s that the oil companies have pretty much stopped spending money on it. They've moved their money to Prop 26, which is the measure that would require 2/3 for fees, and these are a wide range of fees, like when you buy a tire and they charge you an extra $1.75, they use the $1.75 for tire recycling programs, or you buy a TV monitor and it's $10 for e-waste, and that's to do e-waste programs. Environmentalists are now panicking, saying, hey, a lot of these fees are environmental related. They're now moving money from Prop 23 and getting the Prop 23 donors to Prop 26. And so it's interesting, the environmental race has actually shifted in the final weeks of the campaign, and nobody knows how 26 is going to go.
Prop 23 is so interesting because it has a coalition of supporters. George Shultz on one hand, a lot of the big Silicon Valley venture capitalists, and yet they were up against Texas Oil. How did they manage to,
Well, that's a fascinating race because the environmentalists were terrified that the oil companies had bottomless money and that they were going to win, and they flipped it so quickly. They defined it as 2 Texas oil companies want to ruin, clean jobs in California. They ran to Silicon Valley. They got billionaires in Silicon Valley to put up money. John Doerr, Vinod Khosla, Tom Steyer, and they have raised twice as much money, the environmentalists and the clean tech people, than the oil companies. They've raised $20 billion. The oil companies raised 10. I think privately in Texas, where this is being funded from, the oil companies are looking at this saying, we don't want to repeat what PG&E did in the spring, where they wasted $46 million for nothing. They're going to find that money and try to put it in a new measure that they can win. Prop 26 and maybe Prop 25, which Democrats and unions are pushing, which would allow budgets to be passed with 50% in Sacramento instead of 2/3. So the race is just shifting to these different measures as the final days are playing out.
Well, there is one issue that we're going to talk about tonight that I know a lot of people wish there was a vote on, that was a chance to go to the polls and change it, and that is the whole foreclosure, which is a result of the financial meltdown, continues to be a major problem.
Yes, it's true, and even if we could go to the ballot box on that, I really don't know what the solution could be. I mean, the U.S. government cannot come out and write $100,000 checks to all the people whose homes are underwater or subsidize their payments. There are some programs that will do that on a very small scale, but the money is limited. So foreclosures continue apace. They're off their historic heights, as you said earlier, but they're still just way, way, way out of control in California and in the nation and in the Bay Area. There's going to be more than 1 million foreclosures nationwide this year. So in the last month, all these revelations have come up about how the banks cut corners in processing foreclosures. They set up basically foreclosure factories. They had people, who were supposed to be reading the paperwork, who were signing hundreds of documents a day without reading them, basically just, rubber stamping them. It got called the robo-signing controversy. And but the banks are going to get it together on that, and they are going to hire more people, and they are going to process the paperwork. Yes, they're under investigation by state attorney generals, but in general, aside from some small outlying cases, those were legitimate foreclosures. Those were people who did not make their payments. Yes, the bank didn't handle the paperwork correctly, but unfortunately those people are not going to end up getting their homes back at the end of the day.
So I know Bank of America has been mentioned so prominently in this whole story. Explain why, and how is California different than the rest of the country in terms of, I know the numbers.
Well, Bank of America is the nation's largest bank, and Bank of America stopped its foreclosures nationwide. Most other banks just stop their foreclosures in the 23 states that have what's called a judicial foreclosure process, when you have to go to the court to repossess homes. In California, we don't have a judicial process. Homes are repossessed on the courthouse steps. So that has temporarily slowed the pipeline down. But as I said, the banks are going to pick it up again. There's no advantage to them to have those homes sitting on their books forever and ever. So and they're really able to get on the stick pretty quickly.
Are there any risks for people buying the homes that have been foreclosed on? I mean, do we know that the title is free and clear? Do you know? Is it once the paperwork's been signed and it's been processed through a court? Is that it? You don't have to worry. Do you know if you're a buyer?
Well, that is a good question, and that's why you should always work with a reputable title company and get title insurance when you buy a home. I mean, there might be some chance in some of these 23 states, but again, the people didn't make their payments. If they didn't make their payments, if they can't show up in court saying, here are my canceled checks or my return mail, they're not that likely they're going to get their homes back. But there is some concern, particularly in those 23 states.
The federal government, though, from time to time, you'll see a headline or a story where the government is moving in with a program that will moderate these loans in some way and giving some sense of hope. I mean, is that false hope?
It's not false hope, but it's slim hope. I mean, there's been 18 months now that the Obama administration's Making Home Affordable plan has been in action, and they said it was going to help 3 to 4 million homeowners. It's helped fewer than 500,000, and the numbers keep going down. Every month they give a report on, fewer and fewer people are getting qualified for loan modifications. And the thing is, there's just a carrot for the banks. They get $1,000 if they modify somebody's loan. There is no stick. There is no punishment. No bank has been censured. No bank has been held accountable in any way by the government. And the government's attitude is it's free enterprise. The banks don't have to do it if they don't want to, and they don't want to, evidently.
And in a lot of these cases, I mean, there was some fraud, but a lot of these were people who bought a house they couldn't afford, and when they lost their job, they couldn't afford it. I mean, that's the whole. And I guess the question a lot of homeowners have, and people who are looking to sell their houses in the Bay Area or to buy one, is what are the experts telling you about how long this housing depression is going to continue? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? When are prices, if ever, going to get back to some stable norm?
It keeps stretching out. I mean, 2 years ago, people were saying it would be over by now, by the end of 2010. And now sort of the consensus is 2012, which will mean it'll have been 5 long, painful years of this downturn. And it's not, when you look at the median prices, they are trending up, but a lot of that is because more expensive homes are being sold. The median reflects the mixture of homes sold. But, for regular people, for people who, got transferred, or they need to, go to an old age home, or, just who have life reasons for needing to sell their home. Unless they've owned their home 20 or 30 years and haven't refinanced it, it's a very difficult time to do that. They're faced with possibly taking a loss, which is called a short sale, or not being able to sell it.
And this is a difficult thing to do, but I will do it anyway. Is there any tiny silver lining anywhere in this topic? Anything that gives people hope that there might be some program, some relief somewhere along the line?
Well, there are some things. I mean, again, the foreclosures are not at the incredible record-breaking heights they were at. a year ago. There are new programs rolling out all the time. Actually, in California, in this very next month, California is one of the most impacted states that got quite a few $100 million extra dollars from the federal government to set up our own program to help people who are unemployed, who are underwater, and California, the California Housing Finance Authority is going to roll out that program next month. But they've already said it's going to help, just a few thousand people, which is compared to the number of people who are behind and struggling. It'll be good for those people, but
it's good for first-time buyers. Low prices are good for first-time buyers.
That's true. That's true.
Well, I asked for a little silver lining, and you found one, Carolyn. I thank you very much for that. Well, Rachel has the story of the night, because when all of this divisions and turmoil and fighting, along comes the Giants.
Yeah, let's talk about silver linings.
Silver lining, there you go.
In fact, Belva and I called each other this morning to make sure that she wore orange and I wore black. So that was a good thing. But everyone must know the Giants are in the World Series. It's the first time since 2002, and they have whooped the Texas Rangers in the first two games. Astounding. No one expected this to happen the way it did happen.
Amazing.
People thought this is going to be the pitcher's duel. The first two games, we saw the Giants win 11-7. And then in their second game, they won 9-0. Amazing game. If you like drama, there's a lot of drama in the eighth inning of that game when the Texas Rangers pitchers walked in a number of Giants batters. And it was just kind of a frenzy, not only in the stadium, AT&T Park, but across San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Now, what's a backstory to this? How do you go from having a team that nobody expected an awful
There
lot
are a
of
couple of
to
little
having
things.
one?
The people call this like kind of the misfit team, right? A lot of weird stories. Let's talk about our first baseman, Aubrey Huff. Well, he's wearing a red sparkly thong every game. He started to do that at the end of the regular season. He wanted to come from behind to catch up to the San Diego Padres. He said, "This is my good luck thong." So he's wearing one apparently every game. I've not seen it.
You're kidding.
He says it's there. We've got our closer has his beard, the Fear the Beard thing. He's got this beard that he actually dyes black with shoe polish. That's one thing. Tim Lincecum, our ace pitcher, the Cy Young winner. He's he smoked pot last year. We caught him on that. I mean, there's a lot of these. This is a fairly new Giants team, and there seems to be a lot of good energy. We don't have, although we had great players before with Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds, it's not the kind of prima donnas. These are guys who seem to like being around each other. The fans like being around them. There's just a lot of goodwill going on.
Yeah, I mean, what are the scalp tickets going for down there? I mean, what's the excitement like? You haven't actually been to a game yet.
I sold my tickets. I sold them legitimately.
But what are people paying to go? I mean,
people are paying a lot of money to go to the games. I think that some of them behind home plate we were hearing $5,000 or $6,000 for one seat. No,
standing room only for $500 without a seat.
Right. You can easily get 4, 5, 6, 10 times the amount of the face value of the tickets. A lot of people want to do it. One of the neat things that happened when the stadium was built a decade plus ago was that the Giants built the portholes, they're called.
That's right.
So you can actually stand out in right field and peer through. I think regular games they try to move you through every 3 innings or so. Probably a little quicker now. And people are having fun just being out in McCovey Cove, the water outside the stadium. The kayaks are there, people on their stand-up paddle boards. The fishing boats are coming in. Everyone's there trying to just get a sense. If you can't get in the stadium, you're not watching on TV, you can at least kind of hear the roar of the crowd.
Yeah. And one of the nice things about this team, like you said, there isn't a star, there isn't one person, everything's around it. It really feels like a team. There aren't a lot of egos in that room. And they're so young, their stars are so young. This could be a recurring thing for the next few years. I mean, when you look at the four pitchers there, Lincecum, Kane, Sanchez, and Bumgarner, they're all under 27, and Bumgarner's 21. Buster Posey is, 23 years old? I mean, this is a team that could do this year after year after year. I mean, I know the Colorado Rockies are a strong team, but the Giants may be back here. Our years of misery may be over for a little while.
Right, that's going to be if the Giants owners want to make sure that these guys stay together. And I think if they win the World Series, that there's going to be a big pressure from them, not only from the investors, but from the fans saying, keep this thing going.
So we got to talk about what does it mean to those who are not baseball fans, who are just in this city looking for a silver lining.
If you aren't a baseball fan and you want to go to a popular restaurant, you might have a pretty good chance of doing that during game time. I mean, the bars are packed. There's no doubt. I mean, spilling out onto the street. But there is this frenzy. I mean, you walk down through the streets of San Francisco and people, it's not just because of Halloween, but they're wearing orange and black. You look at City Hall, it's lit up orange. Coit Tower is lit up orange.
The Chronicle has a...
Even the Chronicle is. For the fans, it's a great thing, economic boost to the economy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. People are out. When people are happy and they're winning, they want to spend money. I don't know if they're buying houses that have been foreclosed upon, but they certainly are buying souvenirs and food and drinks.
All the politicians are getting on the bandwagon. All of them have suddenly discovered the Giants. They're making. Meg Whitman made a bet with the governor of Texas on this one. Then she held a campaign event yesterday during the World Series game. Now, please.
So I guess that's what people can do if they don't like baseball. They have to watch another Meg Whitman commercial.
So, Rachel, if the Giants go all the way and they win the World Championship, obviously there'll be great joy in the land. It'll be great for our self-esteem. But will there be some tangible benefits? It's good for the economy now, but going forward,
it is.
what
For
would it
season
mean?
ticket holders, there'll be tangible benefits because you can sell your tickets. But I mean, we're going to have, of course, you have a winning team. It brings San Francisco. I mean, we're a tourist destination. The Bay Area is a tourist destination. People are seeing this on national television who are watching the games. You're seeing kind of the city in its best light right now. We're supposed to have a ticker tape parade down Market Street. I don't know how the Green Mayor Gavin Newsom is going to deal with all the paper hitting his head off. He might have something.
Recycle consumer waste.
Or maybe millet or something to feed the birds. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a boost for the economy. It's definitely a boost for the civic spirit. If you're not a baseball fan, you just kind of walk by one of the watering holes where people are watching the game, or you turn on the TV. It's kind of hard not to catch Giants fever.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight. Enjoyed your enthusiasm there, Rachel. And that is all the time that we have for tonight's program. For more election coverage and resources to help you make your decisions, go to kqed.org/thisweek and click on Elections 2010. On election night, tune in to KQED Public Radio 88.5 FM for coverage of national, state, and local races beginning at 5 p.m. We thank you for watching and be sure to vote. I'm Belva Davis. Good night and go Giants!
San Francisco, open your golden gate. You let no stranger wait outside your door. San Francisco.
Mays hammers the ball down the right field line.